Welcome to
4Kids Flashback. Hello, welcome to 4Kids Flashback. I am your host, Tara Sands, joined by
Steve Yurko.
Here we are. Right before we started recording this intro, Steve and I established that we were both grumpy. Not about our guest. We're excited about our guest, but I know why I'm grumpy. Steve, why are you grumpy?
I think just I'm in a constant flux of things I have to do this year, but then also this daylight savings time bullshit.
Oh, yeah. If you guys, this will air in a few weeks, but it is the day, like 2 days after, or day after daylight savings.
Now it kind of messes me up. Maybe because I'm just a grumpy old adult, but I knew I was like, you're going to sleep in Sunday morning. That's fine. But then I was tired all day. And I slept in on a Monday morning and I'm still tired.
Oh, Steve is cranky.
It's okay.
I was up all night with a toothache. So I just got back from the dentist. And he's like, well, you might need a root canal. And I'm not like a person who has like teeth issues. So
no, you haven't had too many?
I never had a root canal.
Okay. I ate too much candy and stuff, and I'm paying for it ever since. But I had a really bad tooth problem. I think just before we started recording this show, I went through weeks and weeks of tooth pain. It was terrible.
So when young Steve was sitting in front of the TV watching 4Kids, since I guess I should bring this back to 4Kids, what were you eating for breakfast? Was it like sugary cereal and candy, or were you
I remember our town had a Burger King. Like our town was small. We had a Burger King, so my brother always wanted. I have an older brother, and him and we always wanted Burger King breakfast on Saturday morning. This is like Kids WB era.
Burger King breakfast. Okay.
Yeah, so this is like height of Pokemon. I think I remember distinctly Pokemon the movie 2000 cups at one point, because my brother, who was blessed with a much better metabolism than I, could just eat like garbage and he'd be fine. And then he discovered, hey, they'll sell shakes with the breakfast foods, so I'm gonna get a shake. And I'm thinking, I want a shake too. I remember drinking like a vanilla shake out of like a Pokemon the movie 2000 cup with Pikachu on it first thing in the morning, thinking like, I probably shouldn't be having a shake this morning, but hey, they're selling them.
So watching Pokemon and eating some BK.
Mm-hmm. That was the way.
That's so fun.
Yeah. Oh my God. People, floss, brush, take care of your teeth.
Yes, if you're young and listening, it's probably too late for most of us.
Yeah, I've been through so much, but then I don't know. And last summer, I went through something terrible too. So
oh no, another tooth thing.
Yeah. It was like my oldest root canal had to be redone. It's this.
Don't tell me this. I don't want to know.
I'm just saying, like, but everyone's different. Sometimes there's people that just like their teeth, just everyone like it comes down to like it's very individual case. This is what people want to hear about.
Is this what people? Well, I was more concerned. Like I had to look at this it was like a new dentist, and I was like, is I talk for a living? Am I going to sound funny? And he was like, no, you'll be fine. But I didn't know. I'm like, is there downtime? He's like, no, you'll go home. You might be a little numb. I'm trying to figure out a way to tie this into 4Kids somehow. Maybe through Fighting Foodons and eating healthy foods. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's a lesson in any
Does our guest have nice teeth?
Our guest has beautiful teeth. Our guest today, in case you guys don't know, if you just clicked on this, or maybe some of you are listening for the first time, in which case I should edit out all of the dental stuff. If you are listening for the first time because you're a fan of Andrew Rannells, welcome. This is the 4Kids Flashback podcast, where we go behind the scenes of shows of like Pokémon, Fighting Foodons, Shaman King, One Piece, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Andrew was a really, really big part of so many of these shows. We'll let him speak for himself. But my time there, I saw him all the time. He was somebody I really did spend time with and work with a lot, and really, really, I feel very lucky that he had time to do this and that he is finally going to speak out of it. No, I know he has talked about this in other interviews and stuff. And I think today we're going to see a more sentimental side of his time there.
Hopefully. I mean, hey, and it's like I appreciate some honesty, but
yeah.
From what little I've seen when people ask him about his time at 4Kids, it's people that aren't familiar with anime, so they don't get it.
Possibly, but yeah.
And here's why we're cool.
Why are we cool?
Is because we get it. We're familiar with, the industry, and so we're not just like, so are they animating to your to your voice? Or
I think that's probably true, but I think there's also people who don't necessarily get his sense of humor and that stuff, who are anime fans, who then are just upset that he doesn't like it and doesn't speak highly of the stuff. So I think you're right. I think it's kind of both versions of people who are bringing this stuff up to him. So I'm kind of curious. We're in the middle. Yeah, that's what I'm kind of hoping. I'm curious because I think he and I both are from the, I think there's like kind of two kinds of people that came out of this, people who have a sense of humor about it and people who don't. And he and I certainly have a sense of humor about our time there, and I don't think took ourselves too seriously. So it will be fun. And this is like for a different interview, but I'm super, super excited for his next Broadway show, which is about Tammy Faye, in which he's playing Jim Baker, and the music's by Elton John. But this is a 4Kids podcast. So welcome to the show. If you're new here or you just want a reminder, it always helps us out if you subscribe, rate, and review. You can also join our Patreon. Where's that, Steve?
You could go to patreon.com/4kidsflashback. Spell it with the number 4, in case you're new. It's the number 4, not the letters that make 4, but...
Yeah, not the letters. But yeah, so you can go there, get bonus content, episodes early and ad-free, all that fun stuff. If you go to our website, 4kidsflashback.com, the number 4, you can find links to merch. You can find a way to leave us a SpeakPipe message. And if we'll play your audio message on the air and respond to it. And there are links to, hopefully we'll have some cool merchandise we're auctioning for charity, all kinds of different stuff on the website. So check it out.
I just want to plug, because, if you might be a new listener, but yeah, we're just talking about everything, 4Kids.
All 4Kids all the time.
Yeah, all the time. But we've talked with so many guests already, actors, directors, a bunch of people in production. And it's been a very compelling and interesting look back at everything. So if this was like a little niche interest of yours, I think we're the podcast for you, because we're talking all about it, talking with people that actually worked there, and uncovering some really interesting stories, reveals, and answers to some lingering questions. So.
Yeah, and if you're here because you're musical theater people, there something I'm sure we'll get into today. There's a lot of overlap between people who work in musical theater and voiceover work. They tend to do very well in the other area of the industry. Something about that. People like Sebastian Arcellis but worked with us at 4Kids. Darren Dunstan, a beautiful singer. So many singers that we worked with there. So check out some of their interviews. And without further ado, why would we make you wait any longer? We've said enough about dentistry. Here's Andrew. Our guest today has done a lot of stuff. You might think that I will be asking him about his recent Broadway run in Gutenberg the Musical. To you, I say, Tama and Friends. Or maybe I should ask him about his work on Girls or Big Mouth or Welcome to Chippendales. And to you, I say, he was James in Pokémon Live. Or maybe I should talk to him about my favorite show, Girls 5 Eva, but did you know that he was Fried Ricer in Fighting Foodons? And maybe you want to hear him talk about Book of Mormon. Yawn. For you, I have 2 words. Funky Cops. Welcome to the show, Andrew Rannells.
Funky Cops. I wasn't expecting that, Tara. I really wasn't.
The first 3 hours are going to be Funky Cops of this interview.
Great.
The next 6 hours, Fried Ricer.
It'll be fried ricer, sure. Oh, Fighting Foodons. I know. Hi, it's so nice to see you.
You would be canceled for Fighting Foodons today.
I think the whole show would just be terrible. It'd just be a terrible idea.
I want to start off by showing you something.
Okay.
Can you see what?
Sure. It's a Pokemon.
What this is?
Yes, it's a wand. Is that from Pokemon Live?
It is. It still lights up. So one of our Susie Goldish, who we've interviewed, found this in a box at home. It still works. So is this is this triggering you?
It is triggering. It is triggering. And I did play James from Team Rocket in Pokemon Live, not the series, but we started at Radio City Music Hall and then went on a brief little tour through the United States just for a few months. And that was one of those jobs that I thought, it'll go away. No one will know this. And now very young people at the stage door of various Broadway shows will come with photos of me from Pokemon Live.
Yeah.
So it's not going away. We're
going to get more into it. Okay. I want to go back a tiny bit because I remember talking to you about this. You and I had started doing voiceover work in high school. So
yes.
We were one of the few people who actually knew what a voiceover was before we were doing all this.
Yeah.
How the hell in Nebraska were you doing cartoons?
I know.
Yeah.
It's very strange. So a company called DIC, D-I-C, that produced a lot of Saturday morning cartoons. They were looking for, I now understand, they were looking for a good city to go to for non-union actors without a heavy detectable regional dialect. And that led them to Omaha, Nebraska. So Omaha, Nebraska, not the biggest city, not the smallest city, but there was a pretty, and still is a pretty strong community theater group there. And I was 15 and asked to audition for a show called The Street Sharks, which was sort of their answer to the Ninja Turtles. They were not turtles, they were sharks.
Oh, okay.
See where I'm going with this? And I was cast, and we did, I don't know how many seasons we did. I feel like we maybe did 2 or 3 seasons of Street Sharks. And then I did another series for them based on the Archie comics, and these were all just Saturday morning cartoons that we recorded.
Did you feel like hot shit being on cartoons in high school, or were you whatever?
I mean, it was that age where none of my friends were obviously watching these cartoons. So, right. I mean, it was a great job. I mean, it was a really good gig to have as a high school student and helped me pay for college and, all of that. So that was great. But yeah, I did a fair amount of voiceover work in high school. And then when I met all of those people who were, produced Pokemon Live, I was a very ballsy 21-year-old guy and said to Norman Grossman at the end of all of that, I was like, I do a lot of voiceovers, or I used to.
It's Norman Grossfeld.
Sorry,
Feld. How dare you?
I can't believe I forgot that. Norman Grossfeld. Sorry. So
Your
Norman,
boss.
So Norman
Yes.
and I, so I said, Norman, I do a lot of, voiceover stuff. And so they brought me into audition for, I think the first thing was Cubix.
Mm-hmm.
Cubix robot.
I checked your IMDb, and that seems to be correct.
Cubix was the first thing, and then that led me to working for them, and I did that for many years.
You're jumping too far ahead. No, but I want to go back to one thing.
Hold on, I'm still trying to catch up. So they're sharks. They're not
sharks. Yeah, they're sharks. They're sharks, not turtles. Yes,
everybody got that.
Here's where I'm stuck. So DIC is a pretty big company.
Yeah.
Now, when they named it, and it's spelled D-I-C, Dick.
Dick.
I wish I had been in that meeting.
I know, and I don't know what it means or what it stands for, or I don't know.
Maybe it's foreign, but still, let's just call a dick a dick.
I know. It does seem odd that that's the name of the company. But they did have their little, production tag at the end of everything was I forget what the graphic was, but it was a child saying, DIC. and that's how they tagged their cartoons.
Oh, because they're like, it's not
just
Dick.
to be clear,
right.
Deke. Yeah, so that's how they they clarified that.
In parentheses, not pronounced like that.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
So, but that's
so you start out with Dick.
I started off with Dick.
Your whole career starts with Dick. This is what I was getting to.
And then ended with 4Kids.
Yep. And then Chippendales. Okay, so you moved to New York to go to college. You didn't do the whole thing, did you?
I didn't.
Did you get the hell out of there?
I went for 2 years and then stopped. Was
Pokemon Live why you stopped?
It wasn't why I stopped, but I had finished my first 2 years at Marymount Manhattan, and I was just just sort of felt like I was in New York City. I was very distracted, like being able to go to auditions for Broadway shows, and I'd gotten close to a couple of Broadway shows, and but wasn't cast. And I was like, I think that I maybe should just start doing this and not be just paying to skip school, which is what I was doing.
Right.
So I was not really going to class that often. I was like, at least one day a week was not going to school so I could go to like an open call for something. I was like, this just seems like a waste of money, quite frankly. Yeah. And at the same time, the woman who was running Deke, Marcia Goodman, asked me to do this Archie comic book show called Archie's Weird Mysteries. And it just all kind of timed out that I was like, well, now I have this job. And then I got my equity card doing Grease the musical. And I was like, this just seems like I should just drop out. Yeah. So
it worked out.
I'm not advocating for young people to drop out of college, but I will say I don't think I was really ready for New York City. Like I wanted to be there. I wanted to be in New York, but I was so distracted with everything that was available to me, quite frankly.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, that's why like I always encourage a gap year when I can, because I'm like, who's ready at 18 for
or to, my friends who went to Michigan, or they went to Carnegie Mellon, or they went to the Boston Conservatory, like they at least had 4 years of no distraction of should I skip school to go to the Rent open call, which I was doing.
Wait, let's talk about that, because we've talked about that callback on this podcast before, because like everyone, it was like a rite of passage
for Rent
to have your Rent callback.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever have to do the dance callback where you had to hump the wall?
No, I never did that. I never did that. That
was weird.
No, I was very much on like the Mark Roger path, and they did not make those boys dance. But to bring it to 4Kids, Sebastian Arcelus, who's still a very good friend of mine, he did end up doing Rent. I think while maybe we were doing, like, he was recording that show One Piece.
Maybe, or like Winx Club. I think he was
something.
I think he was probably. Yeah, I remember when he got that, and it was exciting.
It was very exciting. Yeah, and now we're still very close, and I'm very close with his wife and Stephanie Bach, and he's great. But we were all doing that sort of at the same time, so it's funny that here we are.
We got some like fan questions, and they all were asking like, did you still work at 4Kids while you were doing theater? It's like, yeah, you know what? We all did. All of that. You did. Sebastian did. We were all like, I always said that 4Kids, my jobs at 4Kids were paying my theater habit that I had at night, because I would be so okay. I have this memory, and I have to ask you about it. I remember seeing you in some off Broadway musical. Was
it Karate Kid?
I remember leather. I remember there was like leather in. Am I making this up?
The one that I did, the show that I did like around the time I was sort of not really doing a lot of 4Kids stuff it was called It's Karate Kid the Musical, because it was all illegal and nobody paid for the rights.
How funny.
So it was
maybe that's it. Who were you in the Karate Kid, not really Karate Kid musical?
I played Johnny Lawrence, the villain, the guy, sweep the leg Johnny. I played that part. Yeah.
No, it wasn't that. I saw you in something else, and it was like a tiny theater, and one day I'll remember what it was.
All right.
But I remember you barely did anything, and I was thinking, I'm a really good friend. And then you came on stage, and you were fantastic, and then you were gone for the rest of the show. And I was like, oh.
I wonder what that was.
I don't know.
I blocked it out.
We've blocked out a lot of bad theater.
It's true.
So you're hitting the pavement in New York. You see that Dave Clemens is casting for Pokémon Live the musical.
Yeah.
How does this go down?
Yeah, I was doing Grease at the Westchester Broadway Dinner Theater, and Rachel Hoffman, who is a casting associate with Dave Clemens, called me and she was like, "This is a weird one," because she brought me in on a lot of things around that time, and she was like, "This is kind of a weird one, but I think the money is going to be decent, and it's at Radio City, and like." So, so I went, and it was the group was really great. Louis Perez was the director, and he had just left the Broadway Company of Chicago. And so like I was like, okay, well, he was in Chicago, and he's like, really nice and really cool. And I just kept getting called back for it. And then I got it. And then I kind of was like, oh, fuck. Like, what do I do? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do Pokemon Live, the musical? And the answer is yes.
What did you know about Pokemon?
I didn't know anything about it.
It was huge, right?
It was huge at the time, but I knew nothing about it. So, I remember because my final callback, they had called me back to be either Ash or James from Team Rocket. And they had there was maybe 15 people at this final callback, and we were all reading for these different parts, and they had told us to go home and watch the cartoon, see what you can do. So I was auditioning with this guy Dominic Nolfi, and he was also auditioning to play Ash, and then I was auditioning to also at that same day to be James in Team Rocket, and they paired me with this actor named Lauren Kling. And Lauren and I read together. We read all the Team Rocket stuff together, and it was really fun, and they were laughing a lot. We didn't really know what we were doing, but it was we were getting laughs. And then when they called to say, okay, we're going to offer you this part, and we went back and forth, but Dominic is he's a little bit shorter, and he looks more like an Ash. And I was like,
been a tall Ash.
Well, I was like, none of this makes sense to me, so I don't care. I was like, I don't care. And then, so after, a little bit of debate and looking at my bank account, I was like, I think I have to do this job. So I did the job, and we rehearsed it, and we were just in our, rehearsal clothes learning this show, and none of it made sense. And they kind of soft pedaled all the Pokemon stuff. They were like, and then there's a battle, but we never stayed. We were just not talking about it. We were like, okay. And the script didn't really make a ton of sense, but again, in the room when you're doing it, it felt like just a weird kids show. And then there was the day where they came in with the costume designs, and they were like, and these are your costumes. And I just remember we all started looking at each other what the fuck did we do? Yeah. What have we done?
Was there anything good about it? Because the truth is, I remember seeing it as an adult and being like, oh, interesting. But watching you guys working your asses off and being like, listen, this is a good group who maybe doesn't have the best, I'm trying to be diplomatic, doesn't have the best material to work with, but they look like they're having fun.
We were having fun.
They're clearly talented.
Yeah, look, I was 21. Most everyone was around that age. It was a pretty big contingency from Boston Conservatory. It was a lot of people who had just graduated. So, it was a really fun group, and Dominic and I are still friends, and we did Jersey Boys together years later on Broadway. And he's still very much around, and Darren Dunstan was in it, we worked together at 4Kids. And Lauren and I did Hairspray together later. There was it was a lot of those people ended up Abby O'Brien, we did shows together. So there were people who were very talented, and it was just happened to be one of our first weird jobs.
I think you learned a very Pokemon lesson from that, Andrew, that it's not about the show, it's about the friendships you made along the way.
It really is. It really was.
He's crying.
I'm crying. No, it really, I do remember at a certain point, I think we want to say we were in Indianapolis, and we were playing at the State Farm Arena, which was, they had just hosted like had a hockey game before us, and so the stage was set up, and there were seats on the ice, and then backstage there was just ice, and it was very cold, and there were these little pathways for us to walk to the stage, but most of it was just ice, and it was really fucking cold. And I was sitting with this actress, Heidi Waymuller, and she played Misty, and we knew each other from New York from before, and we were in coats over our costumes. We were sitting and like sort of like shivering, and she started to cry, and then I started to cry.
Oh my God.
And we didn't talk about it. We were just like, I just want to go home. And
you were trauma bonding.
Yeah. And we never really discussed it. We just sort of sat there and cried. But I am still friends with a lot of those people. And, so that was a definite highlight. I mean, the other highlight, if I'm being honest, was that we followed Tina Turner's tour into a lot of cities. So we got to see Tina Turner like 3 times.
Okay,
so that was a highlight.
Awesome. Well, and I was going to say, I'm glad you also but I'm glad you talked about the ice of it all, because I think, listen, and like just being blunt, like I think people hear you upset about your time doing it, and they don't understand really what tour life is like.
Yeah, it was
and
pretty.
These maybe are, and these are like hardcore Pokemon fans who only want to hear maybe the positive, but it's like, no, guys, this is the reality of this world. So I'm happy you told that.
Yeah, it was just like, we just felt really far away from home. And at the end of the day, like Pokemon aside, it could have been any show. Like you're doing a kid's musical for like 1,000 screaming children who don't really give a shit about the story. So it's fun to see the costumes and like, but you're doing all of this stuff and you're like, nobody's really watching this, are they?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, also, when you're 21 and 22, like, especially having come out of some kind of theater program, we took ourselves very seriously. So, and that's what I try to remind people about. Like, it's not that I hated the shows I worked on or whatever.
No.
I loved doing fun cartoon voices, but I had just come out of my theater program, and I assumed I'd be doing something very deep.
Yeah.
So I think that's partially why we laugh about this stuff.
Yeah, and it's all character building, and it's all there's a lot of important lessons. I mean, I've talked about this a little bit, and I wrote about it in my first book, which is this book called Too Much Is Not Enough. It's sort of about that time in my career, sort of the early years, and the only thing I really regret about that and about doing that job and playing James from Team Rocket is that there were a lot of very broad gay stereotypes that I was being asked to really lean into. And I knew in my gut that it was like a bad idea and it was a bad look. And that if, there's going to be little gay kids out there who are watching this and I'm playing gay clown and not telling a story and just doing shit for jokes. And it's like, it that all felt really gross. And it was a important lesson to learn early on that was not something I wanted to lean into.
That's huge.
It was a huge thing to learn. And it was weird that that's the show that I learned it on, was like, because they just, God bless them, like they just wanted more of that very sort of sassy gay. And it was like, all of the characters were, it's like archetypes of different things. And I was playing like the fop in like theatrical terms. And they just wanted more and more and more of that. And like, I felt sort of like my hands were tied at a certain point. Like, I guess I have to do this and I don't want to be doing this.
Right. And that's such an interesting thing too, because is it better or worse when the character is actually homosexual or when they're not and they just happen to be a person? Because then it's like, then it's confusing too. And I think, well, obviously kids today are just raised differently and have different. But that was actually one of the questions we got for you from fans, was about the role of Harley in Pokemon. I don't know if you have any memory of that character.
I sure do. And it was very similar to like a James situation. Yeah.
I mean, I think the problem is if it's new animation, you can say, hey, I'm comfortable doing this if we also have this said, but when it's a dub, you have zero control.
No. And, and I'm sure you remember this, that sometimes we were asked to jump in and do things that you did. It's not like they handed you all of the scripts and said, "Hey, by the way,
no.
this character is coming back." And so sometimes you would start to do things, and then you'd get stuck. And then a month later, they were like, "Oh, that character is back," and you'd be like, "What character?" They'd be like, "You did this one thing," and I'd be like, "I don't remember doing that." And then they would show you a clip of it and be like, "Okay, I guess."
All the time.
Or I remember, because then I also directed Kirby and Sonic. I directed.
You have to
shows.
say the full name. You have to say Kirby right back
Kirby
at you.
right back
if you're
at
gonna
ya.
say
And Sonic the Hedgehog. And sometimes if we couldn't book the actors, we would fake it
all the time.
So if somebody wasn't available, like I remember filling in for people and being like, we can't get them booked until next week, and we have to do this. So like I would just go in and fake other actors' parts.
Yeah, it was so when I try to explain to people how haphazard it was, they don't get it.
Yeah.
You've provided me with a wonderful segue, Andrew.
Perfect.
Thank you. Because I am a professional journalist.
Yes.
As you can tell. So you finished Pokemon Live. You and Darren both didn't go to Dubai, which I'm so surprised about. I'm like, why wouldn't you stay for Dubai? Like that was like the next stop, apparently.
Did they actually go to Dubai?
Yes.
Well,
that's what I've heard.
I'll just mention this quickly because it was really funny that they were trying to get us all psyched to go to Dubai, and no one wanted to go. And and so I think everyone said no. We were like, no, we don't want to go to Dubai. But they did clarify pretty early on that they were like, now this is, we do this all the time, and like, don't worry, we'll take care of everything. We'll take care of everything. We'll hold on to your passport. And we were like, beg your pardon?
Come again?
You'll hold on to what now? And they were like, "No, yeah, just because you never know. Like, we'll keep your passport."
That doesn't happen.
And so we were like, "Oh no, I'm definitely not doing that. Like, I'm definitely going to Dubai and have you hold on to my passport."
Oh, okay. See, this is the behind the scenes shit that I love.
So I don't know.
This.
I don't know if they ever actually did go to Dubai, but yeah.
That's funny. And Darren, I don't think got to keep his suit, but he really wanted it.
He had a good suit.
Because he had a nice suit.
Yeah.
Okay. So you finished your run in Pokemon Live. And so that's what I was going to ask you. You touched on it a little bit. Like, what's the transition from being like, I'm a theater actor to, hey guys, I see you have a company doing cartoons and I do that?
Well, it was about a year. I did it I worked for them as an actor, like sort of off and on while I was doing other theater for about a year, I think.
So that was probably Tama and Friends time then. That was like Tama, that
Cubix, yeah. So I was doing all of that stuff, and then I went away. I mean, do we really? How honest can I be with you on this podcast?
Do it. Okay. We can always cut it, but do it.
I had gone away, and I had done this production of Hedwig and the Angry Inch in Austin.
My favorite.
And so I left New York City for like 4 months to go do this show, and abandoned all of my 4Kids duties because it was not like it is now, where they're like, we'll just find a studio in Austin. Like they did not have the budget.
No, you had to be in New York. Yeah.
You had to be in New York. They weren't going to record you remotely. So I just had to say to Norman Grossfeld, that I'm leaving and I'm gonna leave. So I left town and he was really upset. And then I came back and he called me and he was like, we hear that you're back. We'd like to bring you, back to do some more shows. And actually we want to ask you if you want to take a job as a director, because we've acquired all of this time on Fox, and there's a lot of time to fill, and there's going to be a lot of shows happening, and would like you to try directing.
You hadn't directed? I thought you had before that. Okay.
Had never done it. So they introduced me to Michael Hagney, and Michael sort of talked to me about what the process was, and I watched him do it, and they were like, we think you can do this. And in my gut, I was like, I don't think I want to take, and it was like a salary job with insurance, and it was like a whole, but it was like corporate. It was like a full-time thing. And I was like, I don't really want to do this. I don't think I can do this. And I was telling Norman, like, I don't think I can do this. And my dad had just died. And so I was like 20, I think around 23. My dad had passed away. I was like feeling a little untethered. And Norman said, he was like, how long do you really want to try this acting thing? Because like it doesn't seem like it's working that well.
He's regretted that since, by the way. He's like, on record saying, yeah.
He's like, it's not going well for you. So why don't you just come here and do this? And it's a lot of money, and it will take care of you. Just come do it. And I panicked, and I was like, you know what? I think he's right. I think I need some stability, and I need to do that.
What a vulnerable time, too. I mean, and I almost wonder if, like, I think about it now. Norman wasn't that much older than us.
No.
But he felt like an adult.
He did.
And I almost wonder if that was, like, the dad in him. Like, as crazy as his advice was.
But then I remember, so I directed for them it was really, I think it was like 2 years that I worked there. And then I had a day where I was like, I want to still act. I came here to do musical theater. Why am I not doing that? So when I put in my notice and I went into his office and I told him, I'm not going to do this anymore. He was like, well, I think you're making a huge mistake. And I think you're going to want to come back, and, you're going to want to come back to us, but give it a shot. I guess I can't stop you. And at the time I remember thinking I was so old, but I had just turned 25.
Oh my God.
I was 25 years old. And I was like, I'm too old to be an actor anymore. This is ridiculous. It's not going to happen for me. I know. And so I quit. And then it was less than 6 months later, I was cast in Hairspray on Broadway.
So, this was like 2004, 2005, right?
2005, yeah. So I quit in 2004, and then January of 2005, I joined Hairspray. And Norman came. He did come to see it.
Okay.
He came to see me in Hairspray, and he said, all right, well, congratulations, you did it. You got on Broadway.
I was thinking about the timeline only because this was around the time that Norman knew they were losing the Pokemon license, which...
Well, he never told me that.
Right. No, but I'm saying like that happened because, like the whole cast ended up being replaced.
Yeah.
On Pokemon,
well, and because Darren Dunstan and I were still very close at the time.
Yeah.
And he stayed at 4Kids, and I left. And then, so he was like, it's all falling apart, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so that was my next question, because you did continue to do some, and we'll get into like more specifics, but you did continue to do some VO work there. So basically, Norman was like, the door's open for you to be an actor here, I guess, right? Because you did like Funky Cops, obviously. Yeah.
Well, Funky Cops, if I'm remembering correctly, was still while I was directing. Okay. Because it was
might have started when
it was a pretty brutal schedule that I would direct. And brutal. It was just they were just long days. I would direct all day, and then at like 7 p.m. I would do all of my own voiceover stuff. So then I would record until like 11, 10, like doing Funky Cops and doing all of the shows that I was on as an actor.
I see. Okay.
Because we couldn't do it during the day. So
then once you left for good, did you go back? Because I think you did Chaotic, maybe. I'm like, again, the internet is an imperfect place, but
I'm not. I think once Hairspray started, that was sort of the end. Okay. That I didn't go back.
Because some of these credits might be wrong. That's kind of why I'm asking.
Well, there's a bunch of stuff on that IMDb that like I was like, I was not on that show.
That's what I figured. Okay. That's actually part of my mission with this podcast is getting that crap right.
Yeah, because I think a lot of those things people were like, it sounds like that guy. It sounds like maybe, and they just start adding shit in, and you're like,
you don't understand. Darren and Chris Colleen, all these people are so annoyed with me because every day I send them sound files like, tell me who these are.
Do you know who this is? Who's this person?
Yeah, and sometimes Darren has a good ear, so he's usually pretty good. Like Chris Collet's digging up old emails for me. Like I have everyone working. It's ridiculous.
That's very sweet.
So I'll fill you in a little bit. A lot of us are still in touch because we literally travel the world doing fan conventions.
So please explain this to me. Like where have you been? Where do you go?
I have been like London, Glasgow, New Zealand. Lisa Ortiz and I were in Japan last year for a convention on an army base in Okinawa. And next week I'm going to Indiana. I mean, listen, it's not all so glamorous, but it's like, listen, we don't know what's going to happen with AI and robots, so we're doing all the work we can right now.
Yeah.
And it's honestly way more fun when we get to see our old friends.
Yes, of course. And do you do like panels and like talk about these shows? Is that sort of
That's a small part of it. Honestly, most of it is us signing. And I mean, it feels weird to charge people money for that. And I don't like to do it. Yeah.
But that's and I have, I know plenty of people who do those or do like Comic-Cons where like, if they're in a series or a movie that's lucky enough to like sustain that sort of thing. No, there's
it used to be like a stigma with it. And now like Chris Evans does it. So there's no stigma. So I
think Stephen Amell has a company where he sort of manages a lot of those people and just to sort of protect actors, I think.
Yes.
That everyone's taken care of and everybody knows what the situation is like. Yeah. So there's, I think, and there's and you're meeting people for whom these shows often meant a lot to,
Well,
I mean,
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
I mean, people just come up to you crying about how their house burned down and all they had was a Yu-Gi-Oh VHS tape. Like, I mean, stuff like that. And so so we got a lot of questions from fans like, would you ever do a convention? So we're putting it on your radar.
All right,
for all of you who wrote in. Yeah.
Good to know.
We have literally in May, NostalgiaCon in San Antonio. I think there's at least 20 4Kids actors who will be at that
my
one.
Gosh, that's so fun.
It's crazy. It's weird.
That'll be
this
fun.
This is still my world. But okay, more importantly, when you were doing these shows, was directing on your radar as something you wanted to do? Is it something you would do again? Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it, and I definitely learned a lot doing it. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it made me better at doing voiceovers. And then there was a long period of time just because I heard so much and I was listening to so much, and a lot of those people that we worked with were so incredible at it. It was like you could really learn a lot from like watching those guys. But it was really it's like really, I learned a lot. I learned a lot doing that. And then I didn't do animation for a very long time. So to get back into it then was really exciting. And I was really happy to go back to it.
You also got to get back into it without having to deal with the lip flaps of dubbing anime.
I know. It's really nice. But it does make me very good at ADR. No,
I bet. You're probably such a pro. So for those listening, ADR is like, it's basically dubbing for like a film or a TV show when you have to pick up something that you missed or redo.
Like if the sound was bad on something, and like I just finished a movie last year, and they had booked like 3 hours of ADR, and I was like,
and you did it in 10 minutes.
Well, I did it in under an hour, and they were like, "Wow, you're very, very skilled at this," and I was like, "Well, I've done umpteen hours of anime work, so yeah, I should be good at this."
Well, and also like our friend Michael Sinter-Nicholas, do you remember? So yesterday he voice directed The Boy and the Heron that won an Oscar yesterday. So it's amazing. Like there's such cool things that have come out of that world there.
Yeah. That's so exciting.
Right. And so people wrote in, again, more questions for you, like, would you do anime again? And like, I want to write back to them like, well, for the right project, you would.
Sure. And I don't know what that means anymore. I mean, we fell into such a niche market of shows that, and I know there was a large world beyond that, because some of the actors we worked with also did, shall we say, more adult themed anime work. And
there's a lot of hentai going on.
I feel like I scratched the surface of what that world was.
I think Deke or Dick really missed an opportunity there to get into that world of it. But again,
not too late.
Just a callback. So there were some fan specific questions about your work there. Do you mind answering?
Oh, I would love it.
So we touched on Harley from Pokemon a tiny little bit. Do you remember, like at the time, do you remember thinking about that?
That he's like a gay trainer. I honestly, I don't remember a ton about doing that. And I do remember it was basically, I was doing the voice I had done in Pokemon Live, which was a version of what Eric Stewart, right? Eric Stewart.
Yeah, he was probably directing that. Yeah.
Well, he was James.
Oh, he was James. Right.
Yes. So I was doing like an impersonation of Eric, and they were like, just do it for that character. And it was really, but also like now that I'm talking about it now, I'm remembering more that like initially when you see those characters, it's not like they give you a breakdown of like what it is. It's just like you see a still of it, and then like I feel like Darren Dunstan was directing those episodes, and like all of a sudden we're like, does Harley have a purse? Does Harley like we were seeing other things about him that we didn't see at first, and we were like, oh, so maybe something else is going on.
Well, today that would be a teachable moment, and we would figure out a way to do it. But that wasn't on our radar. Like
no, and we were doing idiots. It really fast. Really,
that's the other the deadlines were crazy. So this question is from Blue Baron at Blue Baron. Wanted to know how you felt landing these leads, like on Tama and Friends. I went back and looked at some Tama and Funky Cops and Cubix. So like again, it wasn't exactly your dream, but did it feel great to like have a lead role?
Yeah, no, totally. And to be like, yeah, I remember Cubix, because Cubix was the first one, and not really knowing what it was, or but to be like, oh, I'm gonna be the lead on this cartoon. And because I had done it, as when I was younger, I understood that it didn't mean it wasn't like a long time we were working on this. And obviously there's a huge disconnect from like a voice actor to the actual cartoon, but I didn't know what it was going to, if it was going to turn into something. It could be something bigger than it was, but no, yeah, it was very exciting. I was very happy. And you audition for those jobs, and I mean, it's like, I want everything I audition for.
Right, of course. Well, that's just it, and it's still like there's still that little teenager in you that's like, how many lines do I have? Like, there's still that.
No, it's fun. Yeah.
The most fun of that, I think, because I remember that's where I met you. I believe was Tama, and we had a director named Brenda who we've interviewed on the show.
Great.
And there was a rap song that you would sing all the time. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is it Brenda Had a Baby?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it was a real song.
It's Tupac, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah.
But Brenda I didn't know you were such a rap fan.
No, it was a song about Brenda, who had a baby in high school. And so Brenda Had a Baby, I would sometimes sing it.
Okay, we have a question from Mario123311. That's very specific.
Mario.
Yeah. They wanted to know if Bokkun's voice from Sonic X was tough on your throat. Do you remember that at all? Bokkun? What is it? Oh, Steve.
Bokkun. He was like a robot.
Yeah.
Right? I think he was like a robot.
Delivered bombs all the time.
Yes.
I believe.
Yeah.
That sounds good for a kid's show.
It was a very high-pitched voice.
I don't really remember what it sounds like, but the other thing that just shows how sort of low budget this all was that no sort of computer enhancement was offered to us. So they would be like, it should sound like this. So then you would just make your voice do these things and be like, close enough. But it's not like they were like, we'll just pitch it up, we'll pitch it down. I do remember working on something where we got to, it was on Kirby with you, and we got to pitch your voice up.
Oh,
but it was like
follow and the fa la la.
Yeah,
I remember doing that.
And we got to kind of like, we just kind of got to like adjust them a little bit. So it was like, but I was like, oh, I didn't know this was even possible.
An option. No one told you.
Why haven't we been doing this all along? And
Well, see, and that's what I keep realizing doing these interviews is how young and inexperienced. It wasn't even that it wasn't available. Like,
we just didn't know to ask.
We didn't know to ask. Or like,
no.
But I also think it's remarkable how much did get done. Like, listen, Norman was a young guy running a big company. The fact that these shows got on the air on time.
They were actually on television.
Yeah. That's crazy to me.
It's pretty shocking that we were in charge of that.
Right?
And I
Okay.
think you'll probably remember some of those Christmas parties at 4Kids. And
Well, we were very drunk. Yeah, but
it's shocking that anything got done. Yeah.
yeah, it is. But
Yeah.
it also is a testament to like, and again, that's why so many of the people that came out of there are still working and
Yeah.
at a high level, like because
It's
they,
a high work ethic.
yeah,
Trial
and he
by
knew
fire.
who to, I guess, yeah, trial
Yeah.
by fire. And so many people we talked to said that like Norman hired them like 5 minutes into their interview, like they had barely, like he just took a chance on all these people. And
Wow.
sometimes good, sometimes bad. Okay, someone else. Sorry, go
I'll
ahead.
follow that up. Actually,
Yes,
ask a little
please.
more about Sonic because you were directing it. I can't remember if you directed all of it, but I'm curious if you were if you remember like the involvement, like the approval process with Sega, if you recall any of this. And
We were, I remember them coming to, because at that stage, like I remember running those auditions, which
Mhm.
really just meant I was just putting people, recording people. And then Michael Hagney and I sort of he let me have some input in terms of just like who to select. And what was that guy's name? Jason, I forget what his
Griffith.
last name.
Griffith, yeah.
Who had not really done a bunch, but his voice was just great. And I remember Michael and I really pushed for him. But it was like Sega was sort of like it's not like they were in the room with us. We were just sending tapes and then they would send feedback and then we would make adjustments. And so I can't recall, maybe I did at some point meet someone from Sega. But no, I think it was all done very remotely. Like
They were kept away from us. Yeah.
Yeah, like
I was just more like I was curious about like just if that was one of the more intense things to cast or at least direct, because I think there was like an extra approval process there, it seemed.
Yes. No, yeah, there was a whole other outside person or people involved. But I do remember specifically with him, like they were like, oh, I don't know, he's not done a lot. But I was like, no, this guy's great. And it is funny to think back, like at 23, that I was like, let's hire that kid.
Right?
Let's get that kid in here.
It's so weird.
It's very strange.
And Kirby was another like property based off of like a video game with Nintendo.
Game.
Nintendo's huge. Like, and was it like the total opposite? Do you think it was kind of more they just left you to it? And was there any, or do you recall any involvement with them?
There were approvals. I mean, I remember the periods of time where those executives would come to visit and they would sit in and we would sort of have to, like, we would stage who was coming in that day. So it would be like Carrie Williams, like they're coming in to see and watch an episode of Kirby. So we would make sure like they were good scenes where it was like stretches of things. Ted, Lewis would, I remember like doing things with him and like maybe even them together, which we didn't do. We didn't record people together, but like putting them in a booth together and being like, look, Nintendo, like this is what we do here. Like doing sort of a dog and pony show for those people. Yeah, I do remember that. Ted Lewis. So great.
I remember you let me on was it Kirby? Like we used to record one character at a time and then stop and do the next character, but I really wanted to do them back to back.
Yes!
I was I want to see if I can switch voices, and you let me do that, which I was very excited about. So
yeah,
thank you.
I think I drove that engineer nuts, Ron.
London.
Mm-hmm. I drove him nuts because I would do shit like that all the time and be like, whatever, who cares?
We were children.
It's fine.
Why were we allowed to do that?
Let's just do it.
Then we had another question about Kirby, and I don't know if you remember this, but they wanted to know why Rick the hamster from Kirby has an Australian accent.
Oh, I do remember Rick though. And did I do it?
That you got me.
I think I was.
I assume if he's asking that, then you did.
Someone out there thinks you did.
Yeah, no, I think, no, I do remember that. I think because I wanted to do an Australian accent, because I think this goes back to how quickly we put these things together. And sometimes, especially if it was something like that, where we didn't have time, or honestly, we wanted to save money, and you do have a director who's also an actor, that I would do a lot of these little voices just very quickly, just to like fill it in, just like, let's do it fast. So, yes, in a perfect world, if we had had more time, we would have hired individual actors to do that. But Darren and I both were just doing weird voices on everything. And I remember he would pull me into sessions and be like, can you just do 5 lines of blah, blah, blah? And I would just come in and do it. And yeah.
And you probably were like, I've always wanted to do an Australian accent. Fuck it. Now's the time. Yeah.
I think that was it.
Yeah.
I think that was it.
They asked that also about Tao Ren from Shaman King, why he had a British accent. Probably the same reason.
That was more specific.
Okay.
That one I think we had to do. I think I had to do that accent.
So do you know if you were approached to do the Shaman King reboot a few years ago? Do you know about this? So they reached out to all the original cast.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we did it was a Netflix union reboot of Shaman King.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
no, I did not get that call.
Someone might have, but you might have not been of it. But yes,
I don't know. They're pretty, interesting.
Yeah.
How did it go?
It was fun. Basically, we summarized the whole show in season 1, and then it moved on. It was fun to revisit a character from 20 years ago. So
that's fun.
Yeah. So hopefully one day we'll do something like that.
All right.
Then a question about Noah. I don't know if this is an insult, but they're curious about your time playing Noah Kaiba in Yu-Gi-Oh! The character has a very annoying and self-entitled personality, and your performance is amazing, is what they want to say. So I don't know if there's a...
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, I remember that kid. Yeah, he was like a little bratty kid.
Yeah. So you don't... They wanted to know if you had any stories, but I'm going to guess you've put Noah out of your mind.
I don't... no, I mean, those like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Were the shows, they were already cast by the time I started working at 4Kids. So like the leads were cast. Those were sort of like the flagship shows of 4Kids. So my involvement in those was like only if there was like a guest star, or maybe it was like for like a little bit of a season or something like that. So I just bounced in and out.
Because I would say they're asking questions about like on Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Wheeler the Monkey and Belowski the Stoner. Like I'm assuming you don't remember this.
I don't remember those. You just have to understand that we did them very quickly.
Exactly.
We did all those things very, very quickly. And sometimes, I don't remember a lot of them. Funky Cops was one, though, that I do remember being very excited about that. It was from France. Mm-hmm. It was a cartoon that they bought from France. And it didn't look like any of the other shows. It was a pretty, and the scripts were a little funnier. Yeah. They spent a little more time trying to make it funny. But it was just the music was a little better.
I would say the music overall at 4Kids was what people liked. And did you ever get to sing on stuff there? Because some of us did.
I did. Yeah. I don't remember what, but yes, I did this. I feel like I did a couple songs on Funky Cops.
Oh, that's cool. We'll see. Okay, so here's what's interesting about Funky Cops. It's technically lost media. John Kalish, the producer, managed to find and gave me VHS tapes of 5 episodes, so we have them up on our Patreon page. But you're great in it. Like, what's funny is now when you look back, like I can send you all the stuff if you give a shit, but some of the stuff is better than we think, and some of it's a lot worse than we think. So it's a balance.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it's
the balance.
Technically, it's lost media. So we've been asking everyone we can to try to find it because there's a market for some of this stuff. Yeah.
Well, Funky Cops. Yeah. Interesting. I do remember singing on that. Yeah. I think I did.
Theme song is awesome. It's one of the best.
It's a great one. It's a good. I do remember that.
So and that's sort of what it comes down to. Like, good and bad came out of all of this. Like, it's hilarious in some ways, and it's sad and weird in others.
I'm curious, because I forget if we mentioned this off mic or not, but you were just at like South by Southwest and you're signing autographs and you're getting some anime fans coming up there giving you some of those characters signed. And I think you mentioned like Noah was one of them, but like, do you remember any recent characters that were just like it was a deep pull, like you do not recall this character at all, and someone wanted you to sign a.
When I was just doing Gutenberg on Broadway, somebody brought like a stack of Cubix photos that they had printed, and which was, and some of I mean it was like they were like stills that they had found, which I was like, wow, somebody really did some research on that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is why you need to do at least one convention. You will be blown away.
I was really surprised.
They will find that hamster. They're going to find that Australian hamster.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And get an autograph.
You were mentioning Street Sharks earlier. That just got put out on Blu-ray.
Why?
Why? They were like, I don't know. Maybe it was a cheap enough license to make a little bit of money off of. So
interesting.
I hope I hope that comes your way at some point. I hope there's at least one person out there that is going to seek you out for an autograph on that.
Going to find some Street Sharks. All right.
But here's why. It's because this nostalgia is insanely strong. Like, whether something's good or bad, if you saw it at an impressionable age.
Yeah.
And let's say it was when you lost a family member or your parents got divorced. This was your friend. So that shark was someone's best friend.
Someone's friend.
But that's what it is. And that's why, like, again, it's part of why I made this show.
Well, it feels like it's a strange gift and also an odd responsibility to be a part of someone's childhood like that. And I think, I certainly have things from my own childhood that, people that are special. I started to cry when I saw Charlotte Rae in person at one point because I was like, Mrs. Garrett.
Yes.
And she was very used to that, obviously. So on a much smaller scale, like for somebody to be like, every Saturday I woke up and I watched those shows, and here you are. Like, it does feel, it feels lovely to be remembered in that way, and it is also like kind of odd to be like, oh, people remember, and to be totally honest, like, I didn't realize anyone was fucking watching those things.
That's it. That's exactly it. There was no Twitter. Like, our lives would have been different if there, like, we would have felt like rock stars if we had Twitter back then. But
they didn't. No one knew. I didn't know if anybody was watching any of that stuff. So,
because you said the Charlotte Rae thing, like, I saw her in a play, and I was like a tiny theater, and I was like, oh my God. But then I go back to, and I'm like, okay, if I asked her about Facts of Life, how would I want her to respond? Because probably behind the scenes, she was making fun of it. You know what I mean? Like, then you wonder. And so, like, it is, you're right. It's a weird responsibility because I want to be honest about what I thought about it all.
Yeah.
You and I are honest.
Yeah.
But when I'm at a convention, I'm like, I try to stay positive, but it's a balance because, again, we know these were imperfect shows and an imperfect process.
Yes. Well, no, and like there are young people who will ask me about Pokemon Live, and like, was it so much fun to be in Pokemon Live? And like, I would always be like, no, it actually wasn't fun at all. And then I would see their little faces fall apart, and then I had to sort of adjust. I was like, well, it's not that it wasn't any fun, because it was fun, and it was an important part of, my learning about, how to be a professional actor. And, but, I guess what I sort of landed on is like, sometimes a gig is a gig.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do acting jobs that are a gig. And that was kind of a gig. That was a gig.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately someone put some shit on YouTube, and then it became something that children watch now.
Well, there's a documentary about it. Susie and I had a couple glasses of wine and watched it. Yeah.
There is. I remember filming that documentary. Yeah.
Well, no, this is a recent one that someone put together with like.
Is it of those? Because we did a lot of B-roll. We did a lot.
There's some of that on there, but then this person, I'll send you all the nonsense for when you're very, inebriated.
Because are you referring to when you recorded it in hopes in the company's hopes that it would be on video?
Yes,
right?
we did record the live version, and then they did. We did it in, I think it was the last city we were in. We were in Chicago, and they did like a full scale thing, which they paid us for and all of that. That was all fine. But before, when we were at Radio City, we had a film crew sort of following us all around.
That's the B-roll, yeah.
Four kids.
Oh, yes.
Four kids loved to record.
Mm-hmm.
Like they wanted to document everything. So there was like costume fittings, and the first time we saw the theater and like all of that shit, there were cameras everywhere. And like a lot of that footage I've never seen, but I do remember they were around a lot. There was a lot of backstage cameras. There was a lot of, so there, it's somewhere.
Well, that high end version of the show that they recorded for home video is completely lost. Norman told us that. It's lost.
No!
I know. So the only I know, yeah, he's sobbing.
No.
But see, here's the bummer. There's only really crappy versions of it that are still online. So it's almost like, oh, maybe you'd rather have the good version of it.
It was just lost to what was it, like in a van that got burned down.
Well, I was just gonna say, I sort of think you might be responsible for it, and this is actually a citizen's arrest.
Oh God!
I know. All right, we're gonna let you get the hell out of here. But is there anything else?
Well, thank you.
Talk about?
Well, thank you for this was a fun trip down memory lane.
Thank you for taking time to do this. Oh, what a fun interview that was.
Mm-hmm.
Just a gallop down memory lane.
Yeah, and I guess would say like almost like a rare opportunity to get Andrew to talk all about the 4Kids stuff because. Yeah,
well,
he's got
in
so
detail.
much other detail because he's got so much other stuff going on too, and
he's an author. I love that he's written about his stuff because I think, and again, I'm really glad that we talked about the roles of like Harley and James and as a gay man doing roles like that, what that means because that is another side of it that people don't think about,
right.
And we're so much more conscious about today, and thank God we are. I
think that's what I like to talk about. Maybe I'm not the person to talk about this, but just say, like, yeah, going back, there's a lot of offensive things and things that haven't aged well in the 4Kids stuff, and I think I just chalk that up to a lot of ignorance and
right.
We've made a lot of progress, and I think, and I'm sure a lot of people working on these shows would go about things differently.
Yeah. But here's what's interesting about it though. Most of the time those shows, that weird stuff happens, but then those shows are forgotten. Mm-hmm. The problem with a Pokemon show, a show like that's kind of evergreen and that now count like generation after generation is watching, is we're not changing those things and they're still starting with season 1, a lot of them, because that's like, the parents' nostalgia factor. They want like their kids to watch from the beginning without us kind of maybe making those more woke, I'll say, changes. And I don't know if that's good or bad, or maybe it's a moment for a parent to have a conversation. And I don't think there's a lot of them in Pokemon. I think for the most part it's...
Yeah. I don't think we need to get like Leonard Maltin or Whoopi Goldberg in to do our intros. Yeah. But...
Yeah.
I think also, like another thing, and like a common thing that was talked about with Andrew is just like how quickly these things had to be churned out, these shows.
Yep.
And like, getting pulled into a room really quick to do a voice or doing an accent on the fly. And I think it's because, it's like part of it is you're working with just a limited amount of people, or it's like you have like Andrew right on site. It's like, hey, can you come over and I don't know, just change up your voice in some way real quick. It's just like a minor character. I wouldn't be surprised that if that was just a common reason for a lot of these weird accents that people always fixate on with 4Kids. It's like limited talent pool, and you had to just vary it up.
Well,
enough,
you can't sound like the other person you're playing in that scene or that show.
Exactly.
So, all right, British, Australian, and I was always so excited when I got to try something new because I was like, okay, 4Kids hires me to be these 3 voices usually, and then if I got to do something else, I was psyched.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure he was too. I'm sure he was like, a hamster? I don't know, Australian? And Darren was probably like, sure, or whoever was in the booth. Like, yeah, do it, okay. But yeah, I mean, Shaman King, the British, that was a more calculated decision.
Right.
Based on probably, I mean, like Jim Malone did tell us that they were more involved, like the foreign team was more involved in that. And had more input. So, but again, that was maybe, that was a character that was there from the beginning. So that was probably a decision that was made.
And in hindsight, when I think about it, better for Andrew to try doing a British accent than doing a Chinese accent.
Like Fried Ricer? Do you know that's what Fried Ricer did?
Oh, yeah. Come on.
Okay, so that's what you were alluding to.
It's me, Tara. I remember something.
I know. So you're okay. There's, yeah.
I never knew that was Andrew, though. I mean, because I have... I mean, who doesn't go back and watch Fighting Foodons like every year?
Who doesn't? I didn't. I bought the DVD and gave it to you because I don't think I could bear to.
Still haven't watched it, but
well,
I would like. But I almost feel like because it's sealed, and I'm like, oh, I almost feel like Tara should be the one
open it. Oh no, I'm very okay with you
start the voyage on this.
Cracking
DVD.
the seal on the Fighting Foodons.
Yeah, but like this is because a lot of people are associating Andrew with his Broadway performances and movies, and so it's really I'm happy that this sounds like we're tooting our own horn here, but I'm glad we were the ones that were able to talk to him about this, especially you, because you were you were friends with them back in the day.
Oh my God, yeah, no, and there's so much we didn't even get into about just the day-to-day friendship-y stuff of it all, and I mean we did a little bit, but I think I forgot to bring it up, but there was a date in my calendar I've talked about on the podcast where it just says Olive Garden with Andrew, Darren, and Lisa. That's the nonsense, and that's what made the job fun is oh, when are you done working? Let's go get dinner. To me, that was the social stuff of and getting to be creative with your friends.
Yeah.
Because I do remember whatever show I did end up seeing him in that we could not remember, my recollection is, he's my friend Andrew. He directs and does the stuff with me, but I don't know if he's really talent. I don't know his talent level. And I remember that show being oh shit, he is good.
Yeah.
And he had X Factor or whatever it was. And I remember him stealing that show. Which is such a fun thing to find out when you're already friends with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
By this age, now if I meet someone who I already know is talented, it's not as exciting. It's fun to discover how talented your friends are.
Well, like we always said, a lot of you were just young and fresh out of college, just trying to find work out there and make a living doing what you spent all this time honing your crafts in college, or for him half of college, or just in young age. And I don't know, just another interesting take from one of the many people we've talked to here.
Yeah.
On everything.
Yeah. I mean, again, and you wish success on the nice people. And when I look at him, I'm like, yeah, it's deserved, and he's clearly handling it well. And
yeah.
I mean, even the fact, I feel so stupid for feeling nervous to ask him to do this, because I'm like, why? He's still Andrew. Stop it.
I think what's great about the show is kind of when, no matter who we bring on, it almost we all come back to, it's just talking about this certain time in our lives. And, everything outside of that, isn't a huge factor in it. We're all just talking about these experiences, and I feel like everyone's we talk to is on that same level, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you reminded, because we had talked before we started recording, he told us that he was just at a film festival and he was asked to sign all this stuff from 4Kids. He also gets asked to sign a lot of stuff from Big Mouth, and he was there with Nick Kroll, but it must be very weird to the people around him who know him from certain shows, the other actors, what is that cartoon? What is this stuff you're signing? So I love that it still kind of comes up and creeps up on him all the time. But
and little do some of these people know how much this means to some fans. It's
right.
For the people that praise him for other roles that he's done in things like Broadway and movies and television, and then there's someone who just really liked Noah from Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what's funny about it is too, and we've touched on this before, is that we all have done over, an actor over their career does stuff they're proud of and not proud of or whatever, and the work I did in my early 20s when I had no idea what I was doing is going to be the biggest thing I ever am part of. Like and no matter what other work I do that I'm really proud of, this work and I'm only not proud of it because I was so young and inexperienced. It's not as if it's just that I want to redo it and do it better. So it's a weird legacy to have.
Mm-hmm.
And for them not to be like, hey, sign this program from this play you did that you worked really hard on. Instead, it's a picture of Bulbasaur, and it's a weird thing to just come to peace, like have peace with. And I do have peace with it now because I'm like, I was really lucky to be there for it at the beginning. But it's heady stuff when all you want to say is, but I was really good in this other thing that no one saw.
That's just being an artist, because
it is. You're right. That is being an artist.
It's like you're always going to be better than you were yesterday,
Yeah, you're right.
But so people will really like some of the things you've done. And it's like, oh, but to you think, oh, but I suck then. But
yeah,
it doesn't matter to the people that, get to experience it for themselves. So you kind of just have to.
It's just weird that it's one word. I mean, let's be honest. It's weird that Bulbasaur had one word. And that is what is going to...
The Roadrunner had 2.
Yes, true. Okay, fair enough.
Both icons in our industry.
All right, let's just compare with the Roadrunner. But now, Andrew's awesome. It was really nice to reconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you guys. So what you should do now, if you've listened this far, is you should go to patreon.com/4Kids Flashback, where you can see episodes of Funky Cops. They are the ones that we were able to uncover are up there. Some of the sound and visual quality is awful, but it is the only place where you can see it. There are other versions of Funky Cops online. They are not the 4Kids version. There were other English versions done. So if you want to see Andrew's version, patreon.com/4Kids Flashback. Go to our website, subscribe, rate, and review. It's a nice thing to do. Oh, that was a little song.
Remember
Steve,
that.
Any notes for us, or should we just say...
We'll catch you next time.
4Kids Flashback is a production of Maji Media, hosted by Tara Sands and Steve Yurko.
Producers are Zach Logan, Tara Sands, and Steve Yurko.
For more information, go to 4kidsflashback.com. That is the number 4. And if you worked at 4Kids and have a story you want to share, please email us at 4kidsflashback@gmail.com.
You can find us on social media at 4Kids Flashback, and to listen early and ad-free, head to patreon.com/4kidsflashback. And for podcast merchandise, find links on our website and Linktree.
As they say on every podcast, if you liked this show, please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell your friends, or 4. If you want to check out other Maji Media podcasts, go to maji.media. Thanks for listening.